Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk Assassin's Creed, the only one podcast for all things Assassin's Creed. We all know that Assassin's Creed is an historical fantasy mishmash type game, as I'm going to call it, but the game prides itself on historical accuracy. So for a bit of fun, we're going to be taking a look at origins and the facts and fictions behind some of the history. But we are not alone, we're joined by a friend of the show, Ammit,
Hi, everyone.
who knows a bit more about history than me, because I'll let her explain it actually, because I don't want to ruin it.
Oh, yeah, the great cliffhanger. So I have a master's degree in Egyptian archaeology. I'm not just someone that he randomly picked up on the street. So,
Imagine
or
if,
I could be. Who knows?
imagine if I just went around the local street and, hey, mate, you, Assassin's Creed? Yeah? Come my house tonight, we're recording the show. Don't know who you are, but you're going anyway.
Is that what the youth say now? To pick people up from the pub? Excellent.
If I went to the pub started shouting like, hey, I'm an Assassin's Creed fan, someone's going to say, yeah, just leave. We're having a nice evening, just leave. You're ranting too much.
Please leave us alone.
True story, and this is off tangent. I bought Assassin's Creed from a game shop a few weeks ago, and I actually told cashier about my podcast, and my girlfriend was just like, don't have to tell everybody. I
No,
was
you
like,
have to.
he asked. He asked if I
And
like Assassin's Creed.
so,
He
yes,
had
of
to
course, I
know.
answered. He was clearly interested.
He may not be interested in the podcast, but he's clearly interested, so it had to be slipped in somewhere. So,
Oh.
let's see what we can dive in first. So I want to leave the best for last, and that'll be the afterlives, because I think Curse of Pharaohs did something amazing, and it touched on the afterlife beliefs. So I think the first one we could look at is Cleopatra herself.
Yes.
So she is well renowned in history books, but how
hmm
much of that was truly portrayed in Origins?
Ooh. Okay. For context, so Cleopatra was the last. Was actually, yes, the last of the Ptolemies. She kind of made herself the last of the Ptolemies. We are told the problem with how Cleopatra is portrayed everywhere is that we have very few Egyptian sources and many Roman sources that talk about her. But the Roman sources are biased because she was the enemy. So they tend to portray her as this sexy Oriental temptress, witchy, very promiscuous woman who just so happens to also be a queen and have immense power. Some of the anecdotes that we are told are actually in the show, like when she enters Caesar's chambers rolled in the carpet. That's something that actually we are told by Roman sources because she wanted to make an entrance. And
That is an entrance.
I mean, yeah, what an entrance that is, right? And it is true that she had a love affair with Caesar. They actually had a son. So, I mean, at the very least, they were, they seem to have liked each other somehow. It is true that she was very much in conflict with her younger brother, Ptolemy, who was the one who killed the Roman general Pompey, trying to ingratiate himself to Caesar because he thought that it would be a good idea to kill Caesar's rival. So the part of like the decapitation of Pompey and Bayek and Aya finding the body and being like, oh crap, this is bad, is absolutely true because Caesar was like very upset about that. And it is true that Cleopatra was actually trying very hard to be a good ruler, which is something that we see, I think, the first time that we meet her in Memphis when she's talking to the people. And she's trying to present herself as someone who cares about them. We know that she was the first of the whole dynasty who learned how to speak the Egyptian language, to speak and write the Egyptian language, because the others would have spoken Greek, which was the language from Macedonia, from where they came from. Uh, she would have not spoken directly to the people, though, because Pharaoh is never supposed to be seen by the peasants. You never see Pharaoh. You see representations of Pharaoh, you see, You hear proclamations, but you're not supposed to see Pharaoh, so Pharaoh would not appear just casually lounging um, and talking to his people. But the fact that Cleopatra wanted to be a good ruler, that is actually even admitted by the worst of Roman sources. So props to them for not, just giving us a negative portrayal of her. What else? Was she beautiful? Was she fascinating? We are told that she was very fascinating, that her voice was fantastic, that she could speak like 7 languages, that she was very smart, that she could command attention whenever she entered a room. Like everyone's gaze would follow her and she would command every conversation. If you see her portraits on coins during her lifetime, not really a beauty, but no one looks good on coins. So, that's neither here nor there.
It's a coin. If you look beautiful on a coin, then I'll be kind of weird.
Right, right. It's very difficult to look beautiful on a coin. It's like it's kind of made to make people look bad in that sense.
So
Oh.
I'm actually quite impressed that such a very minute detail like being rolled up in the carpet was touched upon. It's I learned Greek Egyptian history a lot in schools, and I was really fascinated about it. But I
Mhm,
never learnt any details about Cleopatra apparently being rolled up in a carpet. So I saw that as dramatic flair for a game, but knowing that could have actually had some tail to it, it's kind of entertaining.
oh, it is, it is. And like, and a lot of details that we are told about Cleopatra seem to be like either like exaggerated and to have this oriental flair of, Eastern monarchs being extra in the most modern sense. So, all the gold, all the riches, but also like a flair for the drama, for being dramatic. So appearing out of a carpet would have sounded in character to a Roman audience that was learning about Cleopatra. I don't know if the real Cleopatra would have done that. I don't think any pharaoh would have done that voluntarily. But exceptional times require exceptional measures. I guess. I don't know. I've never been pharaoh.
So another part of Cleopatra's life that was um, kind of exaggerated in the game, I would say, because the game has to balance history and gameplay. But with something like Cleopatra, with no real known history, if it's true or not, is Aya's defeat of Cleopatra. Because common belief is that she was bitten by an asp, but it's also that when she learned about Octavian's plan to bring her to the tribunal, she killed herself with poison. So
Yes.
there's two sides. Did she poison herself, or was she bitten by an asp? And then you got the game bringing Aya into this whole equation. So it kind of puts more fiction on the fact because there's no actual true fact, if that
But I
makes sense.
do I do love the fact that you could read the story of the snake as Aya actually poisoning her, right? Because
Yeah,
her symbol as Amunet is a snake. So that is I did love that. And also I think like the story of the snake is fascinating. Once again, it's very in line with how the Romans saw uh, these Easterners being extra even in death. So we're told, she had, she wore all her things, all her royal attire, sat on the throne, and then she had the snake bite her. Like, good luck getting a snake to bite you. But maybe if it was poison, the snake could make. I mean, the symbol of the snake is also the symbol of royal power in Egypt. They would have a cobra on the crown. So I'm wondering if there's not like a sort of innuendo on the fact that she died as a queen, not necessarily because she was literally bit by a snake, but because she chose poison, which is the snake's bite, and also because her symbol was a cobra, like as a queen. But it is cool. But I would have loved to see Aya actually using a snake to poison her. That would have been the coolest
that would
thing.
have. Is it possible then, just from a historical point of view, that the killed herself with by bitten by an asp is more was it kind of a way to make um, her death more legendary than cowardice. So they might have felt like, oh, if she just poisoned herself, that's cowardice. But if she got a snake to believe her, then she's legendary because she had the courage to do that.
That is an excellent point, and yes, I stand by that. Although we do have a Roman poem written by Horace about Cleopatra's defeat, and he actually admires her for taking her own life rather than being humiliated and dragged around in chains. And Horace hated women, and he clearly hated Cleopatra, and yet he had to admit that, damn, she had some, she had courage to do that. So, but of course, a snake makes everything great. Although he doesn't mention the snake, he says she took black poison. So he leaves it kind of, there, suspense. But he admires her. And in that sense, I think that but I think that you're right, that like using the snake is like adds to the legendary aura of this great queen, right? What a way to go.
Bit more dramatic. Give it some
Yes,
flair. If you're gonna kick the bucket, you gotta have flair.
exactly. Do it in a way that everyone will remember, even, 2,000 years later.
So the second one I want to have a look at, and the reason why I chose this over hundreds of thousands of things, is its iconic status, and that is the Lighthouse of Alexandria. Now,
Hmm.
I do believe that did stand for some quite time as one of the seven wonders of the world.
Indeed.
So it's so iconic, so huge. How can you get its structure, its location false? Is there any part of what they represented through the Discovery Tour or as a viewpoint that could have been seen as fiction?
Um, so that is a difficult question because we don't have a okay. We have the foundations of the lighthouse. We know that it stood. We kind of know what it looked like because people described it like in more or less detail. And we know that at the time in which Origin takes place, it would have been actually the place for a garrison of Roman soldiers. So that part is actually true. The big sphinxes and the big pharaonic statues that you see outside of it, questionable. It is not a temple. It's not a tomb. You don't really need those seated statues like in the style of Abu Simbel. I don't know if they would have put, sphinxes in front. It is like we are told that the flame at the top was visible from like miles away, absolutely miles away, and there was also like a system of mirrors to project it further away. So I do think that like actually the reconstruction of the lighthouse was fantastic. It was really well done. Although slightly you know uh, compressed for spatial reasons. Like it would have been a bit more outside on the island. But then again, the whole map is being compressed because you can't put everything to scale. But I think that was like one of the things that they reconstructed the most that was really, really impressive to me. So, but I'm not sure about the big statues, to be honest.
And that's one of the reasons why I had to bring it up because we know Assassin's Creed has a lot of history for its one-to-one scales. The devastating fire of Notre Dame a few years ago is
Mhm.
actually using Unity's built Notre Dame to help repair it. That's mind blowing that a video game is
That's
helping build.
incredible.
Yeah, I learned about that and I was like, whoa, that's mad. So seeing an iconic statue as Lighthouse of Alexandria and knowing its status as a seven wonder, it kind of makes you wonder: did they take so much liberties because there's not a lot of history, even though there is a lot of written about it, but there's not a lot left, or did they try and stay faithful? So it's good to hear that they did take some artistic liberties with sphinxes because no one can really say if it was there or not.
Hmm. Yeah, and you also need to make things look cool in video games, I think. I mean, some things might have looked dull in real life, but we'll never know. So might as well make them look cool. Add the extra, add the flair.
So the other thing we do spend a lot of time doing, and it's very disrespectful to do it,
Gasp.
gasp, how dare we, is we break into the tombs of the pharaohs.
Yeah, we do that too as archaeologists. Anyways,
Rude. I will admit on a side note, I am severely disappointed that there's no hint, but I could be getting my dates mixed up.
Mhm.
about um, Tutankhamun's tomb. I can't remember when he reigned, if it was before or after Origins.
Oh, it was like a long time before.
Uh,
He was, yeah, yeah.
the reason I mention it is because there's that whole curse of his tomb.
Hmm.
I just thought it'd be cool if Origins had a nod to it, like walk past him, like don't go in there, it's cursed. Well, it's not,
Yeah,
but
it's
there's that.
not about.
There was that whole thing that historians dug it up, and apparently loads of bad stuff happened, and they blame the tomb.
Yeah, right. Instead of blaming, the fact that you're not letting it air out. I mean, if you open something that has been closed for 4,000 years, for God's sake, let it air out for some time. And then, right? I mean, every morning I open the window in my bedroom, and it's been one night. Imagine 4,000 years. I mean, let it breathe a little. Well, 4,000, 2,000 years. Let it breathe a little and
So,
see how it smells. That alone will kill you.
look, and the reason why I brought this up is twofold. We recently learned in real life that the famous Giza pyramid actually has a secret chamber, lost to antiquity, that was
Mhm.
actually predicted by accident by Origins.
Yes.
Origins actually predicted a real tomb. That's kind of mad. And it got me wondering, when you decorate the tomb as a Tomb Raider, you see that their walls are lined with goblets and jewels. And I've heard tales of they get buried with their riches, their servants. I think someone said cats. Like, who wants to be buried with a cat? Like, your cat's the one that's going to push you off the edge of the afterlife, not sit with you.
They're gonna knock everything off the surfaces.
Exactly, Anubis is weighing your heart on your scale, and your cat's like, nope, knock it
Nope.
off. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is, how faithful were they to the real life history of the tombs?
Oh, okay. Big question because tombs in ancient Egypt changed a lot from the Old Kingdom to basically the Ptolemaic period. So Old Kingdom, we're talking about it starts in 3,300 BCE. That's like the unification of Egypt. And then the Ptolemaic period ends in 31 BCE. So that's a long span. And tombs change. Um, I did love how they recreated the pyramids, especially the first pyramid, which is the stepped pyramid that you see in Saqqara, because you can see the whole complex. Because a pyramid does not stand alone, right? There's a whole complex of temples and offerings and other things outside the pyramid, and the pyramid is merely, I mean, it's giant, but it's merely the tomb. But everything else of importance for the soul of the king would happen outside. So I did love how they added the temples and other things for all pyramids in there. The tombs that we see in Curse of the Pharaohs, especially Tutankhamun's tombs, are fantastic. They are, I think, for Tutankhamun's tomb, they took the pictures that Howard Carter took 100 years ago, basically, when they opened Tutankhamun's tomb and recreated the whole mess of objects, piled up and covering the walls and everything else. But we don't know if it would have looked like that back then because it had been opened and something had been stolen and then it had been reclosed by the priests of the valley. But like the moment I entered Tutankhamun's tomb in game and I saw the chariots, being dismantled and put there and the beds, I was like, oh, they've seen the pictures. They've seen Howard Carter's pictures and just plopped all the things in there, and that was great. The other tombs that we see, Nefertiti's tomb, we don't know where it is. So unfortunately, that one's lost. Same for Akhenaten's tomb. We don't know where that one it is, so that one is lost. We find other tombs going around, like some of them have the Izu stuff. And apart from the Izu stuff, I love the attention to details because, like, in many many tombs they have both the sarcophagi of the owners and the small statuettes shaped like mummies that are called ushaddi, and those were like basically servants with your name on it. So if in the afterlife you're called to perform any labors, these statuettes will answer for you. And I loved that every tomb in Origins had those for its owners. And I do love like the richness of it. Like when you find the tomb of the warriors, there's like chariots, there are weapons, there are shields, there's everything that they would need, and there's food, there's offerings, and also the cats. Um, cats would be mummified, and would be buried, not with, I mean, generally not with their owners, unless in very special cases. They would be mummified and buried in special animal cemeteries. And we know that in some temples, and this is said, the cats were also like killed, mummified, and sold to the pilgrims to offer to the gods of the temple. So there was a business behind it. And sometimes you were sold a totally legit mummy cat, and now we do CT scans, and actually there's no cat in that mummy. It's not even a mummy, it's just something, wrapped to look like a cat. But it's the thought that counts. But they probably paid it, for a cat mummy, and they just got swindled. So yeah. So what was the question again about cats?
I didn't know there was one about cats. But you brought up a really cool fact about the mummification, and I just have to quote, somebody did say that most Egyptian wouldn't have been able to afford mummification. So if they were lucky, you got a reed mat, and if you're unlucky, you got yeeted into a quarry.
Yes, I did say that. I stand by that.
It's kind of interesting because if I remember in Origins, there is a mission where you've got to avenge some families, some person's family, and bring them back to them, and they actually lay them down on a reed mat. If I remember correctly, so they kind of jog my memory that there was no mummification, even though you did see embalming in certain temples. But in one of the missions, they were laid down on a reed mat, which would have shown that the family didn't have a lot of money, but they had enough to respectful of a reed mat.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the important thing for the Egyptians was preserving the body. And so if you can wrap the body in anything, it's better than leaving it as it is, because maybe if wild animals, and this is going to get very dark very soon, if wild animals smell the body, but if it's, put in something, maybe they won't desecrate it as much. But yeah, I stand by my my claim that if you were lucky, you got the reed mat, and if you weren't, you were, let's say, buried in the desert, or left to the left to luck. But I mean, you would be buried, but not like in a structure. Let's put it this way.
I kind of prefer the idea you eat into off a quarry.
Well, you gotta do what you gotta do.
So that ties into my second to last topic, because this is actually one that I have a real fascination over, and it's why Curse of the Pharaohs was so perfect for me. The afterlives.
Yes.
The afterlife mythology is one of the best mythologies in Egyptian mythology that I read. With your heart being weighed, your decisions. It was all really cool. So it's impossible to have a factual representation of the afterlife because nobody knows it. So I do know I'm stretching the limits of this episode, but I do want to discuss, judging off like texts, what people believes, and that's what's more important than just history. It's belief. How accurate was their representations of the afterlives we got to see?
Ooh, big questions. So I have thoughts about that. So in general, the Egyptian afterlife, first of all, it requires instructions. You can't just die and you just go, because there are trials that you need to pass. There are gates with guardians that will ask you questions, and you need to know the answers to these questions. And then there is a judgment that we see in Origins, actually, that when Bayek is high on whatever that is, I was about to say mushrooms, but I'm not sure it's mushrooms. I mean, I would not be surprised. And he sees the giant scale with his heart on it. That is actually what one would have seen, and what we see represented in papyri and on tombs. So you would be judged by Osiris, who is the king of the underworld, and the 42 gods of the 42 provinces of Egypt. And they would weigh your heart against the feather of goddess Maat, which is order and truth. And if your heart is heavier than the feather, you would be devoured by Ammit, the devourer, my namesake, who's like this sort of demon, but she's got her paycheck in hearts. And you would cease to exist forever, which is the worst possible thing for an Egyptian. If your heart was lighter, you will be allowed to go forward to the fields of Aru, the Sekhet Aru, the field of reeds, which was the final destination for all the souls. And it's basically paradise. And that is the afterlife that we see in Nefertiti's tomb, right? It's a very lush region. There are fields, there's water. It's never night. It's always a good season. It's always good weather. And the souls would have their own, their fields. They would farm. They would be immortal, and they would just, get their own food, get their own wine, and be happy forever. And that was like the ideal ending for everyone, which is why they had amulets and papyri with instructions on how to pass that. Now, this is for everyone but Akhenaten. Akhenaten had very specific ideas about religion, and so he thought that the sun disk Aten was the main god, and his idea of the afterlife was probably more similar to what we see in game than other beliefs. So a place where the Aten rules overall. The other two afterlives that we see, so the Duat is like the general name in Egyptian, is the general name for the afterlife, the Duat, but it's like the darkest part of it, and you don't live in it, right? You don't end up in it. You just pass through it, and then you end up in the field of reeds if you're lucky. So the Tutankhamun's afterlife was a weird choice. I mean, I understand that it was very cool, but like it was such a weird choice for an afterlife, because that's not supposed to be a place where people dwell. And Ramesses' afterlife, I don't know what that was. I loved it, but I have no idea what that came from, to be honest. I was very confused. I would have expected, the greater King of Kings to have a better afterlife, but somehow he wasn't at peace. Although the battle that they mention in his afterlife actually was his allegedly greatest victory, the Battle of Kadesh, but it was not a victory, it was a draw, and he almost died. But we digress. So that one afterlife, I don't know where they got it from. I think the best representation, the most faithful representation of the afterlife in Origins is the one from Nefertiti's tomb, Aro. That's fantastic. That's great, and that's basically what every Egyptian would have aspired to, to end up in. Let's put it this way. The others are cool, but not necessarily true to. I should, instead of true to life, I guess it's true to death. If that makes sense, does that
Yeah,
answer your question?
that does, but it also kind of picks up the big question, and it's one that I've debated for ages, just history versus gameplay. If you go into the field of reeds, I really doubt you'd spend your days getting attacked by giant ass scorpions. Just
Yes, that
no one,
is that is true.
no one's like, hey,
Forgot.
I've died. I'm just gonna go now live in the field of reeds, be
Yeah,
happy, and
no. Goodbye.
there's a scorpion and
Yeah,
some
and
jackals.
angry jackals. Yeah, that part is more game than Afterlife. But I understand the mechanics. But yeah, no giant scorpions.
But it's cool. Please tell me
But
giant
it's so
scorpions.
cool.
Please tell me they're in mythology somewhere that they exist.
Scorpions, plenty. Giant scorpions are probably, I don't know. They have a scorpion goddess, and she's really cool.
I'm
But
sold.
I okay, that's it. So
I'm sold.
yeah, we're gonna sacrifice to her later.
So I think for me the afterlives were just weird, as in like you can't build something that doesn't exist. You can't
Hmm.
look at a textbook and say this is it. But I believe with the other two tombs, it seems like they try to build something based on that person's life, which
Hmm.
is a general consensus in a lot of mythologies and a lot of practices that your heaven, your afterlife, is your greatest moment or something that sums up who you are. So maybe because there's no actual representation for the other two, that they've just tried to find something for their life.
Yeah, it's probable, and also like maybe they just wanted to show different different environments and different I don't know, showcase different ways, different kind of terrains and wars that they could build. I doubt Ramesses II would have chosen the Battle of Kadesh as his afterlife forever.
It's the freakiest one, like especially since as you walk in, that little water bridge with fire and two
Yeah,
beefy dudes guarding it. That was terrifying.
yeah, that was unsettling, especially the guy with the beetle scarab for a head, which is actually an Egyptian god, but usually not one that yells at you,
I don't want to be yelled at by any god.
especially one that has a beetle instead of a head.
Yeah, that's even scarier. Like I've seen a lot of mythology of the deities in Egyptian and they look cool, but that one and I think it's Sekhmet with the crocodile head.
Oh, Sobek. Yeah.
Sobek, that's one. Sobek. Sobek, weird. When you have to fight Sobek and the animal glitch, I was like, no, because the crocodile head looks creepy.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'll pass. I'll stick with lion heads.
Well, that was even freakier. Like,
Oh, he's so cool. Come on.
it's cool, but like, will he purr at you if you talk at them, or like, what?
Well, we know that one time she wanted to wipe out the whole of humanity, but they got her drunk on beer. So there is that.
That's legendary. Like, I'm going to
Yeah.
destroy you mortals. Have a pint. You'll be fine.
Oh, a
So,
lake of beer.
have a lake of Guinness. You'll be happy tomorrow. So, the final topic is just a fun one. Let's have a laugh. Pants.
Yeah, let's talk about pants.
If you were tuning into the podcast, you heard right. We're talking about pants. How
Yes.
historically accurate would pants have been? And if anybody found it or used it, would the bathhouse towel, which is the most weirdest outfit, technically be one of the most accurate in the game? Like, not legit. I don't think we would have had Egyptians going to war in fresh, silky bath towels. Like, I will fight you with my waist towel. But
Hmm.
it was. It was it accurate, would they wear just like minimal clothing, have abs showing, or would they be full bronze knights?
So first of all, let's get the pants out of the way. No pants. No pants. Oh, that did really sounded weird. No pants. If anyone tunes in right now, they're gonna call the FBI. So no self-respecting Greek or Roman or Egyptian would have worn pants until much later. And I actually think that the first people to wear pants in the Roman army would have been either auxiliaries or mercenaries from the northern regions of Europe or cavalrymen, because, to avoid ruining your legs against a horse, I would guess. But no, in Egypt in 31 BC, I don't think anyone would have worn pants, especially those weird under the knee but not quite reaching your ankle pants that Bayek is wearing. Not shade, but those are terrible. Um, the bath towel is actually more accurate than the pants in terms of the time period. Um, in terms of armor and equipment for the army, so at that point in time, Egypt would have had a very complex organization of the army because it had been conquered by the Ptolemies some 300 years before, and the Ptolemies had a Macedonian style army. So the main core of the army would be people in bronze armor, bronze helmets, giant round shields, and 20-meter long spears. And then, any other type of division. But the Egyptian army itself, historically, did not wear armors. Like most Egyptian infantrymen would not have worn an armor. And if they did, it was probably not of bronze, but it would have been of leather, because your main defense is not your armors, is your shield, right? And that was true for most of the surrounding people. Officers and pharaoh would have definitely worn like some sort of armor. We have representations of pharaohs with these beautiful corselets shaped like two wings crossing on their chest, probably made of bronze, most probably made of bronze, or at least with like some metal inserts. You don't want to be covered in metal in the Egyptian heat. you are going to boil. You're going to boil alive. So, even helmets would have been like, like caps or like wigs, not like full bronze hoplite helmets. So if anyone had worn the medieval knight armor in that heat, good luck. You would have died after like 10 minutes. You're boiling. At that point, it's an oven. Um,
I smell barbecue.
oh, it's me.
So I had a quick whiz over to Assassin's Creed Wiki because they have everything. Now, if we took out all the legacy outfits like Aglia and Altia, because they're technically um, um, Animus hacks, but we could kind of say that, let's say, he would have been sweating the hell in them. It
Yes.
seems the only ones that would make sense to have pants, it's very weird I keep saying that, would be the dress of the coastal realm, dress of the foreign realm, and dress of the northern realm, because these three dresses seem to be outside of the Egyptian border. So it would then make sense for them to wear them because it's just attire from a different culture. But
Right.
looking at stuff like the Egyptian Wahid has pants, the actual Gasp of the Plains is just big metal braces and boots that
Oh,
have fur.
oh.
Like,
Also, let us dispel the big myth. Like metal braces, not really a thing. You don't need them if you have a shield,
oh, so if you've got
right?
a, I didn't know that. So if you've got a big shield, you wouldn't have had arm braces like vanguards.
Yeah, why would you need them? One of your arms is protected by the shield, and the other arm you need to use it, and you need to have mobility to use your weapon of choice. So you wouldn't need to like you're not gonna deflect. You're not Wonder Woman. You're not gonna deflect anything that is thrown at you with your with your arms. So yeah, that's a big like ancient word misconception. I really don't know where it came from, but it's so weird. It's so weird.
So it then comes on to a question of this one probably is just design over actual historical accuracy, and that would be the Hidden One armor. Now, the Hidden One armor, which was for the DLC, the Hidden Ones, has pants and vanguards and a hood. But typically, if let's say Bayek was real and the assassins were real, this wouldn't have been an outfit they would have decided to choose, would it? Something with like vanguards, pants, and a big hood with very looking heavy shoulder pads.
Yeah, oh, I don't know what's up with the shoulder pads in Assassin's Creed games, honestly. I don't know why they like shoulder pads that much. Maybe it's the 80s that are coming back. Yeah, it doesn't look very practical either, with like all these fringes coming down of things and the animal pelt and everything else. I do think one that looked kind of accurate, I mean, kind of, and take it with several pinches of salt, is the priest one that you get when you defeat the soul of the guy who killed Bayek's son in the afterlife, and you get the beautiful thing with the panther skin, with the leopard skin, and the painted arm, and like that crazy mask. That one almost looked accurate to me, because priests would wear leopard skins in certain rituals, but not like in everyday life. Like you don't go to the market wearing a dead animal. In theory. In practice, I don't know. Never been there, but yeah, there are some crazy ones. And also the pharaoh armor has the corselet that I was talking about with the two wings, but the helmet is all wrong because you know that's not what the the war crown would look like. So yeah, many liberties taken. I see why. I just wish they had just gotten rid of the pants. Like the Persians would wear pants, so give us a good Persian outfit. But everything else, just get rid of the pants. Just give us the legs. Give us the skirts.
They did have the Persian Commander and Persian Guard, and that could have been bought from tailors for 200 drachmae. But the Persian Commander was a really nice deep purple, but it had like metal kneecap, thigh braces, and like shin things, and metal vanguard. So I don't really think that would have been practical. It's
Yeah, no, that's a lot. No, the Persian army like notoriously had like long pants, but they would be like comfortable, if I recall correctly, because you once again it needs to be practical. Uh, in this case, I see why they chose, the shiny metal over every possible surface rather than having baggy pants of fancy colors. But guess what? That's what it would have looked like.
yeah. Looking at the Persian guard outfit, it's the same story. You can see really long metal legs and metal vanguards, but the rest of the outfit does look very small and loose. And that will come on to the final topic about armor, because I could talk about all day. Is something I learned in history, in science, is color. Now, a lot of dark colors attract heat, making you sweat more. So
Hmm.
you need to wear more lightish colors. And a lot of the armor in Origins is very dark and dark purples, dark browns. Would have
Yeah.
they have used a lot of them dark colors, or would they have had more bright, vibrant colors in them
Uh,
designs?
Everyone's color in Egypt was white.
Oh,
Easy as that. They planted linen, they harvested linen, and they wove linen into clothes for everyone, from peasants to pharaoh. You wear white linen. The quality can vary. You can have very, very sheer see-through linen for the dresses for the ladies, and we see this in tomb paintings and everything else. But even like the representations of the soldiers on campaign, they are wearing linen skirts. They're wearing belts on top of them, but like the main, like the one accessory, like the one item of clothing that every Egyptian has is a linen. Well, let's not call it a skirt. Let's call it a loincloth. It's just a linen thing that goes, that covers your thighs. So that would have been the thing. Colors are expensive. Um, and you really wouldn't have a lot of colors in the clothes for the army, because why would you, right? Why would you need that? And I mean, officers could display their rank with weapons and equipment rather than with colors. And also, like, probably like wearing purple would have been a no, because purple was very expensive. Red also probably a no, because it's very expensive. Black, absolutely not. So actually, the main color that people would wear, and we see this from Egyptian art, would have been white. When the army is on the march, everyone's wearing white. So
it must have been blinding. It was like one of them personal adverts where everyone's just got really bright whites.
shiny white.
So this actually, because this just wraps everything up nicely, it just proves that, as we did discuss in me and the Nerdy Archer discussed in History vs Gameplay, you can't make a historically accurate game. It's just too boring in some areas. To make a game go flair, you've got to add some twists and some turns.
Oh,
And Origins seems to have done a really great job of giving you the history factual as best as possible, but giving you as a player more agency to have a bit more freedom, which is just perfect because Origins is such a big world and you see a lot more of it. You need to know if what you're seeing is just copy and pasted fan art, or is it just deep driven homework.
yeah, and in this case, I think they did an excellent job of like world building, and like if you do the discovery tour, all the information are accurate. Most of the clothes and most of the wigs are accurate. I mean, I think that there has to be a balance, right, between what is historically accurate and what is entertaining. And for big AAA games, entertainment needs to, take the spotlight. And then, I mean, if we want to make it into something that we can use as an educational tool, that's on us. But yeah, entertainment should be should be the main thing. Historically accurate games can be very dull.
And I think Origins has a lot of gameplay and story moments that make it phenomenal. But
Hmm.
as it is the first game with Discovery Tour, it
Hmm.
actually proves that how much homework this company was willing to do, because you learn quite a lot. And I have discovered, talked about the importance of Discovery Tour in the past episode,
Mhm.
and how schools are still using Origins and Odyssey to teach Greek and Egyptian history.
Indeed, we are because they're good and because they give you a sense of everyday life that you usually don't get from other things. Which and I think it's very I mean it's important and it's something that like video games have a great potential for, rather than using books because I mean we are visual animals, right? So we see something and and it sticks with us. So I think that is excellent. I can't wait to see what else we get. I can't wait to see the next Discovery Tour.
See, and this is off topic, but the only reason I want to see Valhalla's Discovery Tour is learning about mythology in books is
Hmm.
difficult because a lot of the text, how it's written, is old English or old translation. So
Hmm.
imagine trying to learn about Zeus from Shakespeare. That's the sort of feeling you get from books. But having a discovery tour, we could walk up to Harvey or Thor or anybody and hear them talk about their history is more entertaining to people to learn about the mythology because mythology in history is as important as what really happened.
Yeah.
90% of what happened in history is because of mythology. And you're going to call me daft, but ask any historian that 90% of history is built on beliefs from mythology.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. No, and also like mythology was such an important an important thing in people's lives in ancient times that it's like it's it would be like we would be remiss to not use it to teach the ancient world. Oh, and it's great that we can literally walk up to the characters and like interact with them in game, provided there's been some research behind them and not just you know they did not just put them there for the sake of it. Let's put it this way.
Which is why the Curse of the Pharaohs DLC was good because
Hmm.
there was a real factual reason for them to be there because of the story,
Yeah.
and the afterlife was a huge way of life for the Egyptians at the time. So it does tie in with what we're saying, fact or fiction in Origins, and everything seems to be as factual as text will allow, but gameplay has got to have a flair as well.
Absolutely.
So this is all we've got time for this week. I
Hmm.
hope you really enjoyed this episode. Ammit could be coming back. I do have more episodes in store to ask of you.
I would be very happy to come back and discuss pants anytime. And thank you for having me
Yeah,
again.
it was great to have you on board, and in the future we can, let's not say more and keep it as a surprise, but
Hmm.
talk about more archaeology gaming in the future.
Yes,
But
gladly.
yeah.
Hmm.
Um, so this is actually a big episode because it's the final episode I'm doing as a solo host. As of next week, I will be joined by a new co-host, James, which a lot of these episodes were done pre-advanced, so James wasn't able to get on board, but he will be coming next week. So party, gonna be fun. But
Excellent.
put with me with my editing, because imagine having two guests on. It's three audio tracks to edit. Oh, I'm scared now, Amit. I'm scared.
Nah, you got this. You got this. And James would be a great addition to the podcast.
So if you guys would like to get involved and you want to discuss what's been discussed in the episode, you can find Amit on social media and we'll put a link in the description. And you can email me at assassinscreedletstalk@gmail.com or through Twitter at AC Let's Talk. Thank you all for tuning in and I'll see you all next week.